I first got all the documentation to send off to the Victorian government and to do things, and I sent it all off with my cheque and whatever to get things hunted up, and I didn't hear something for some months. And I must admit, I sort of thought, well, I suppose I've got to do a trip to Victoria or something else, and where will I fit it in my busy schedule when it's not such a high priority? That's probably the major issue. And I got a phone call at work one day, which was the number I'd put on the form, just out of the blue, and it said, and I'll look up her name as well, I'm your adoption counsellor. And I said, oh, counsellor, I didn't know why. Oh yes, just under the legislation we're worried that, she said basically that if you split your wrists because we're giving you the information, that we're removing the government's liability from giving you this information in case it's upsetting and you do the wrong thing and then want to take legal action with us or something along those lines. So I had then booked a time and we spent an hour and a half counselling. So what she'd actually done is spent months searching up documents, relevant court documents, hospital documents, anything through government archives somewhere along the way on my history, so she could go through it all for me. So it's sort of like a cost price freedom of information search on just about every government department that they can do. And of course one of the things they've got to do is any personal information pertaining to anyone else, they have to blank out in it. There was one rather amusing thing when my parents had to make application for me. One of the things they had to do was to state their financial situation, and my father was just a young doctor. I think they earned £5 or something a week in those days. I think coal miners earned a lot more, and people can argue the merits in that, but even though he was a doctor working in a government hospital, he wasn't particularly affluent. So they had to list things like one second-hand Holden station wagon motor car as his major asset in his life to show that he was financially adequately able to look after me. And those sections were all blanked out with black text to pen, and the documents were photocopied, and my father and mother laughed like mad when they saw those things, which of course had been blanked out to protect their privacy on things with their application. I got the extraordinary documents, and I sit there thinking when I write hospital notes for clients or my clinic notes for people that what use will come to them in the future. And I've become used in the last few years that many government documents in the area I've worked are being ditched at much earlier ages rather than being sent off to the Commonwealth Archives. And it's always upset me thinking that we've got this incredible knowledge, even if it is mill scroll, that you'd need someone who's an expert in hieroglyphics to interpret, but you've got more chance of doing that than if it's been incinerated or pulped or something, which to me seems a sad lock of information. But I suppose there is the holding cost with the increasing amount of documentation to actually store this data. It's quite extraordinary to find little notes from my mother as a 19-year-old with an unwanted pregnancy, went to the hospital to try and make arrangements, and the comments from the experienced, I think they were nurses actually, who were involved in arranging the adoption, that they said, she's very well got her gear together and got her head together and and knows what she wants, and made a decision. She did quite a bit of engineering on the whole thing because she worked in a hospital and understood the system. One example was, and it had its repercussions, was that she listed my father as being basically blonde-haired, blue-eyed. And interestingly enough, this it was a life-changing decision for me that she did that, because with two white Caucasian parents, I would actually get a top-rated, number 1 or A-class adoption parents. But if there was any suggestion that I was mixed race in white Australia, they would have got a much lower level adoption. And there's actually evidence of this. One of the girls I worked with at Kempsey was put up for, she's born a few days earlier than myself, and she was actually up for adoption at the same period in the same hospital in Melbourne. And she was known to be part Aboriginal, though I would, doubt from her appearance that anyone would pick that. But just simply because she was tarred with that, tarred with it, I didn't even mean to say it like that, that issue. She was actually in hospital, I believe, for 5.5 months while they were struggling to find an appropriate placement for her in a family, because she was known to be of mixed race. Now, myself, I was adopted, I think I was 5 or 9 days old or something like that. It helped because Ruth had made a very firm decision that I was going to go. I believe that Victor did come and see me in hospital with my father, and a whole lot of the family were actually quite upset, saying they can't believe that he had a son and didn't make some provisions for him. And all along I said, well, no, it's actually not an issue if he did. It doesn't, it's not an issue. I've been well looked after, and well, better than well looked after by my parents, so I hardly need to go around looking for extra opportunity. I was always told I was adopted, as I said. I was adopted from the hospital, but one of the interesting things in the choice was my mother, Jean, had a number of choices. And they actually had a number of kids up for adoption, and presumably when you had top pick because you're a doctor's family, you could pick what you wanted and could list the recommendations. And so her only priority was she wanted a child with olive skin, not one that was a little pale thing that would get sunburned, because she loved the beach and loved outdoor things.